Reset with G. Scott.
Welcome back into another episode of The Reset. Hey, when you get a chance, please hit that subscribe button, man, or even share this podcast. And for all of you that's been coming back, we really appreciate you. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the fact that the Seahawks are 3-0. Yes. And then also that upcoming game against the Detroit Lions on Monday night. I got my good buddies with me, Frank and Paul. Frank, the Seahawks are 3-0. We got the chance to talk about it on the live stream. Pumped up. I'll give you a stat right now. Right now, teams that start off 3-0 usually have a 74% chance of making the playoffs. So all of the Niner friends that you got, all of the Cowboys friends that you got, make sure you remind them that the Seahawks are 3-0.
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar stat that like 80% of teams that start 0-2 miss the playoffs. This is a nice confirmation because the schedule does obviously get harder. We're going to get into that a little bit, but someone wrote in the live stream, I think 2 weeks ago, that what I really liked was we haven't had a game yet that we dropped and we're going to be like slamming our foreheads about. Like, we didn't lose one to the Broncos that we shouldn't have. We didn't lose to the Dolphins with a backup quarterback. We're winning the games we should win. So for the tougher games like the Lions, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will see what happens. And one of the things that I do love, and I've said this on the stream and I'll say it again, I love what the Seahawks defense has been doing. I love what the defense did against the Miami Dolphins. As a matter of fact, this Seahawks defense did something that the criminal justice system hasn't been able to do, and that's contain Tyreek Hill. I keep saying that. And we are seeing a Seahawks defense make mediocre quarterbacks look absolutely awful because the opposite could have happened. So I'm loving where the Seahawks there. Now,
He didn't look like a professional quarterback.
No.
And that's no disrespect to Thompson, but
No, didn't look like a professional quarterback at all. Paul, your thoughts on the Seahawks? They're 3-0. I know, and then I can't believe you're about to answer this question in that damn Denver Broncos sweatshirt, but go ahead.
Well, I'm out of the, as you can see, we lit me this time. So now I'm out of the darkness that is a winless team, and I'm excited that what we saw about the Broncos. But what I think I'm really encouraged by the Seahawks is now we've seen two instances where the Seahawks need to respond. Tough first half, things aren't, there's some ways that aren't really going the way you need to go. But the Seahawks have made adjustments when they've needed to. They've trusted in their coach and in the schemes that he's calling that set themselves up for success. And I think Frank nailed it. It's so easy in the early part of the season to get caught up in the early season the early season storylines, dropping a game that you shouldn't drop. No, that's not the case. And what's most important about the Seahawks hot start, 3-0, while the rest of the division is what, 1-2? Is there anyone that no one in the division has a higher record? I think that's huge.
We thought this division was going to be really competitive. So having a 2-game lead after 3 weeks, that's crazy.
Right now, we see the Niners have a Super Bowl hangover. Right now, we're seeing the Arizona Cardinals kind of be who a lot of people thought they'd be. And I think right now we're seeing a Rams team that's So again, we'll take this. Now, the question that is happening in barbershops all over here locally, the question that is happening on social media, and you guys can put this in the chat, is a very simple question. Did the Seahawks beat three of the worst teams in the NFL? Are they 3-0 based on the competition that they played? Here's why I say they are a legitimate 3-0. Number one, I believe Geno Smith is one of the top quarterbacks in the league through week 3. Number two, I think DK Metcalf is the best wide receiver in the league right now. He is superhuman. And number three, I think the Seahawks defense is top 5 in the league through week 3. That's the reason why that this Seahawks 3-0 is legit.
How many times are we going to let you get away with saying DK is the best receiver in the league?
You love DK Metcalf.
We all love DK Metcalf.
What?
Come on.
Oh,
how about the guy Sam Darnold is throwing to?
That's what I was going to say. I think
touchdown.
I think Justin Jefferson, is the guy. I sold on Justin Jefferson in all of my fantasy leagues. I think that
I sold it on the podcast.
So let me get this straight. You guys think that I am using my Seahawk bias to call DK the best receiver in the game?
A little bit.
Wait.
But this I don't want to.
Because this is the first time you guys are calling me on this. Because you guys have let it slide.
We've let it slide. We've let it slide a couple times out of pure excitement. I will say I don't even want to call it a resurgence because DK's been good his whole career, but the 2 50-yard touchdowns in 3 weeks. He had 5 in his career beforehand. Like,
I mean,
we might see another level.
That 71-yard touchdown in Lumen Field, the way he ran away from them safeties, he ran away from them like it was a Diddy party. I mean, let's be real. This DK is superhuman. All I'm saying is if you rack him and stack him, and we're getting ready to play some schoolyard ball, you're picking DK before you're picking Justin Jefferson. And I'm not just talking about the receiver. Let's talk about the way DK blocks. You guys want to talk about DK in the run game? Justin Jefferson can't mess with DK in the run game. I mean, but just let me have my bias.
Just Jefferson ain't getting those 15-yard calls, though.
DK Metcalf is the best wide receiver in the game. I said what I said. What else y'all want to talk about?
One thing I just want to add too, because this was a conversation going around. So we faced New England. We went to overtime, and then they just got blown out on Thursday. And a lot of Seahawks fans were going, well, we struggled against this team. What does it say about us? There are different iterations of the team throughout the season. I actually do feel New England through the first 2 weeks of the season with Jacoby Brissett with an adult at quarterback was a much more competitive team than when you saw on short days rest playing on the road against New York. And probably what we'll see, Steve Coogan, who we had on earlier, we were talking like this, that the New England team could turn 2-5, but that doesn't mean they weren't good in their first 2 weeks before they kind of realized who they were and then they were looking towards next season.
Denver Broncos went to Tampa Bay and won.
Well, and they might be the opposite of a sense that they're a much better team at week 3 versus week 1. I think Miami's the same way. But that's the only thing, too, is sometimes when you compare these teams change. They morph. They're in good situations. They're in bad situations. There's rest advantage, disadvantage,
Before we get off this Miami Dolphins topic, let's bring in a Miami Dolphins fan, our good buddy Bill. Let's bring him in right now. As you guys know, we have incredible people in our building, even if they aren't always Seahawk fans. And I want to, show the diversity, if you will, in our building, that we have a Denver Bronco that is on our show, but then we also the Seahawks played against those Miami Dolphins, and we want to bring in I don't know why I'm messing up, but we want to bring in a Miami Dolphins fan. Bill, thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
What do we see? What are we seeing with the Miami Dolphins, Bill?
Well, I think what you saw is that the NFL is built around quarterbacks. We don't have a quarterback, and so you're not going to see Miami pop back until they have a quarterback. Now, there are so many rumors going on. I've heard everything from Russell Wilson's going down to Miami to so many other things. Where are all the good quarterbacks in the league? But we have had a bad early run with the quarterback situation in Miami. I think what you also saw, though, was that we still, you guys were talking about 2-game lead, after 3 games. It's still very early in the season. As Frank was saying, things can change a lot over the season. So it's still very early, but it's certainly good for the Seahawks. And for me, I kind of went to this game neutral because I love the Seahawks. I've been a season ticket holder for 30 years, but I grew up with the Dolphins in the 70s. And in fact, the best T-shirt I saw at the game yesterday was "Let's party like it's 1973."
Yeah.
Because that's the last time they really partied in Miami.
Yeah, it's interesting. First of all, there were a lot of Dolphin fans.
Yeah, a lot more
at
than
the
I
game.
thought there'd be.
There were
a lot more than I thought there'd be.
But what's interesting is they still wearing Dan Marino jerseys.
Exactly.
What is up with that?
Because that's the last great quarterback we've had.
He's the only guy they can cut to.
Yeah.
In the broadcast. There's Dan Marino.
There's Dan
Exactly.
Marino.
Still him.
So speaking of,
That's the problem with Miami, though, is that's still the jersey that sells the most at the team shop.
Really?
Yeah.
So you mentioned quarterback, which I agree. You show me who your quarterback is, I show you where you're going. Well, speaking of quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, what is the future for you guys? There's a quarterback that's had some concussions. We don't know if he's going to play again. They say he might. They say he might not. Who knows?
Yeah.
What is the future of the Dolphins then?
It's so up in the air, and it's I think Frank and I were talking offline about this. It's like what are they going to do? Is this franchise going to sit still and go with their backups that they already have, or are they going to go out and try to be creative? They're not going anywhere if they don't pull someone in from the outside, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think
They're not going anywhere if they don't pull someone in from the outside. I have no idea who that'll be, but they need a quarterback.
And you do not want it to be Ryan Tannehill.
No, I do not. I'm not a big Tannehill fan.
One of the things, look, I know this
Been
is,
there, done that.
I know I'm not supposed to do this, but on my watch, it just said that Gonzaga is going to be going to the Pac-12. So this won't play well by the time it comes tomorrow. But anyway, that happens. Frank, any last thoughts about these Miami Dolphins before we put them in the rearview mirror and look ahead to the Detroit Lions?
There's a flash and a pizzazz that comes with the Dolphins, and Bill, you were the one that put me on it, that they're actually like very sneakily a poverty franchise, and I don't realize it. The heavy lifting Dan Marino has to do, where you would never put Miami in the tier of Detroit, Cleveland, Chicago. You have a lot of thoughts on Chicago. But they've actually had a pretty tragic 2 decades. Like it's
Three,
pretty,
I'd say.
It's been pretty bad.
It's been really
And
bad.
it's something I don't really think about. Like the Jets, I think of the Bills. I
They'll
think
pop
of.
with a division title every 20 years.
But
They lose in the playoffs if they ever get there. It's a tough franchise right
So what's
now.
the problem?
Ownership. It's always ownership, in my opinion. If you got to find the right people to get the right players. And the Tua thing is interesting because they were rolling the dice on Tua. Before, when he left Alabama, they were talking about that he had the concussion issue. So they decided they were going to give it a shot. And we're seeing that those fears were valid.
Well, we're going to be seeing what's happening because these Miami Dolphins, by the way, let me admit something. They were my pick. I had the Miami Dolphins going to the Super Bowl in the AFC. I just thought I liked Mike McDaniel. I like the offense. And I think there's a possibility. It's something we're going to be talking about more. I think I got fooled by this whole new offensive wizard, being a wizard and all this kind of stuff, when at the end of the day, it's all about who can run the ball and stop the run. Thanks, Bill.
All right. Good to
Appreciate
be
you.
here. Thank you.
Yep. Monday Night Football, Seahawks, Lions. It's a game that most are looking forward to. The Detroit Lions, considered to be a Super Bowl contender maybe this season. And then you have the Seahawks, who, by a lot of national expert opinion, were around 21 or 23 in the league. That has changed now that they're undefeated in 3-0. Frank, Paul, let's get started. Monday Night Football coming up. Your thoughts?
First off, I think it's one of the best games of the year so far. What an awesome matchup. It's NFC Superpower versus NFC Dark Horse. And the scariest thing, though, about this game, because we've been a little quiet about being nervous about the game against New England and then being nervous about the game versus Miami. Now it's my turn to be nervous because I've been listening to a lot of these Brandon Mebane interviews, and it's all about the line, both offense and defense. Lions have a top 3 offensive line. Lions have Aiden Hutchinson. Can we deal with either of those things? I don't know.
Yeah, when it comes to that, look, I'll admit, I've been a little worried, but I'm really extremely worried, and it's very specific. I'm worried because I didn't like the offensive line play in this last game at Lumen Field. And I like to think I give a lot of support to the O-line, right? I didn't like that. I also didn't like to see that only rushed for 35 yards in the first half, and you see what that led to. Kind of the third quarter wasn't great, and then they finally picked it up and they rushed for 100 yards, but it took into the fourth quarter. This is a game right here that I believe you got to be able to run the ball and you got to be able to stop the run. And the Detroit Lions, Paul, they have a two-headed monster that can run the ball, and they have an offensive line that ain't no joke.
How important is it for the Lions to have 2 running backs that you can count on, both of which offer such different things, but so many strengths? Montgomery is your short yardage goal line guy that's just going to bang and get. Did you guys see that play where the line literally carried him a feet off the ground for an extra 3 yards yesterday? Wild. And then you have Gibbs, who is one of the most exciting players in football. I love when teams like the Lions are good. I love when there's excitement for teams like the Lions, and I think this is going to be one of the best matchups. This is why the producers and schedulers schedule these great matchups on these primetime games. We don't need these whack Thursday games we've seen in the past. This is primetime Monday Night Football, a huge early season matchup. And G, you mentioned on this episode how you think DK Metcalf is the best wide receiver in the league. I think that there's a guy on the Detroit sidelines that's going to be trying to go for that crown as well.
Yeah, stop it. You can stop it.
And that's just the problem with the Lions is they have answers on paper for everything. They have a deep threat in Jameson. They have Amon-Ra who can catch any ball. They have Sam Laporta for short routes and can also stretch the defense going against linebackers. And then, as you mentioned, 2 amazing running backs. One of them came from Chicago. He looks pretty good.
Now, I'll say this. Now, while there are some nerves that I have about this game, let me tell you why the Seahawks are going to win. Yes, you heard me say it. The Seahawks will win this game. You want to know why? Seahawks will have the better quarterback on Monday night. And I think Seahawks will have the better offensive coordinator on Monday night. I think the Seahawks, as far as their weapons, you can kind of see it. And whenever they want to, they can unleash it. We saw it in game 2. We saw 2 of the best duo wide receivers, trio with Tyler Lockett, but we saw a duo get, for the first time in Seahawks history, 10-plus catches in the same game. I think Ryan Grubb is going to be in his bag. Geno Smith is going to be in his bag. DK, Jackson Smith and Jigba. So even though I do complain about the run game, the one thing I like about this Seahawks offense is they can beat you in other ways. That's why I think they're going to win. And oh, by the way, Seahawks defense ain't no punk now. Now come on.
That's right.
Seahawks defense ain't no punk. Don't just think, Detroit Lions, that you're gonna just be able to do what you want to when it comes to them. Oh no. So I'm gonna tell you right now, it's gonna be a great game, but I do think the Seahawks win.
Yeah.
Man, you didn't look too confident on that, Frank.
I'm not. I'm a little nervous, and I get nervous when the coaching staffs have yin and yang that work so well, and I think the Lions have that, just like I think we have it with Grubb and McDaniel. They have Dan Campbell, who's hoorah, who has these guys run through a wall for him. And then you got Ben Johnson, who's the numbers, the nerds, the statistician, the scientist creating all of these crazy offensive schemes. So that really that really makes me nervous. One thing, though, that I am excited about is it is Monday night. Our team's a little beat up. So we get one extra day. We'll see about Walker. We'll see about Leonard Williams, and Byron Murphy. One thing I want to add, as I'm looking into the camera, I want to talk to my guy Reek, because Reek was awesome playing against Tyreek Hill. Now you got to take on Amon-Ra St. Brown. This is the NFL, and this is what makes the cornerback position so brutal. In the division, when healthy, Debo and Ayuk, Cooper Kupp and Nakua, and Marvin Harrison Jr. Not in the division, you got to take on Tyreek. Now you have to face Amon-Ra St. Brown. There are so many good receivers. Having an amazing cornerback duo, an amazing shutdown corner is the difference maker for a team. Reek, we all believe in you. You can do it. But this is the
Hey, you know why? You know why he can do it? Because he faces the best wide receiver in the game in practice.
There you go.
DK Metcalf. Hey, you know what? I'm gonna leave just simple with this, because I know he brought up the rah-rah, and we're gonna close this. By the way, after I'm done with this, make sure you subscribe. Okay, subscribe, and then we're gonna get to the X's and O's. And here's some thought I wanted to give you. You heard him just talk about how, Campbell for the Lions and these rah-rah coaches. You know what I like? I like the type of coach the Seahawks have. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and say this. Mike McDonald's kind of boring, and I love it. It reminds me sometimes, you ever know some of those husbands out there that are boring husbands? Sometimes boring husbands are the best husbands. Not the one that want to fly to Vegas with their partners all the time. The one that just want to go get a beef brisket and put it on a Traeger for 18 hours. Those husbands are some of the best. Those that want to just worry about the lawn and the grass being taken care of. Those that want to make sure things around the house are great. And they talk bad about the boring husbands, but some of y'all got some boring husbands, and you couldn't be more happier. That's the Seahawks, baby. The Seahawks have the boring husband for a coach, but he just sits there, he just does his thing, drinks his water bottle, and they win games. 3-0, baby. Now time for the X's and O's. Let's go. sometimes they're mad at you because you won't let them waste your time. Isn't that something? A lot of folks out there trying to waste your time on a daily basis, and you decided, nah, I'm not doing that. Let that be a reminder to anybody that is letting others waste their time. Don't do it. And if you'll find out, real friends in your life, when it gets to that point, they sometimes just want to waste your time. And once you figure out how to not let them waste your time, they get mad at you. Keep working it. Keep figuring it out. Hey, I appreciate you for listening. Love you for that. And as always, be kind.